What is your cat's name? And more relevant to today's topic, why did you pick your cat's name? How did you decide on what to call them? There's a story behind every cat name, even if that story is just that they have stripes, so you named them Stripes. Does what you name your cat actually matter? Well, it might, but not for the reason that you're thinking. The answer is complicated, so get ready to learn a little bit about cats and maybe a little bit about yourself too, because we're talking both cat and human psychology. There's also a few practical lessons for those of you who aren't massive nerds like I am. I like cats more than I like people. No offense to any people watching this, but you can't compete with cats, come on. So we're starting with cats first. Does your cat care what their name is? A few years ago, there was a post that went around social media that I'm not going to share or link to or anything like that because I don't want to draw attention to them, that claimed you should avoid naming cats something with an S in it because the sound of the S may sound like a hiss, which will upset your cat. I did a deep dive into the literature, and good news for those of you whose cats are named Sam or Shortcake, there's no scientific basis for this. It sounds very reasonable, and people sometimes suggest that to stop a cat from doing something, you should hiss at them, which is not actually something you should do. Your cat is just gonna think you're an idiot, and you're gonna still have the same behavior problem, and you may accidentally teach them to do it more because you're paying attention to them. Don't hiss at your cats. But that doesn't make it true, and shockingly, not everything on the internet is real. Chances are your cat doesn't understand the meaning behind their name other than recognizing that it is their name. Cats don't speak, well, they don't speak English or Japanese or French or Klingon or anything other than cat, honestly. They can learn to associate a specific word with a specific object or to respond in a specific way to a word, but that's not the same way that another person would understand that word. Your cat also doesn't care if their name is not a boy name or a girl name. Cats don't understand gender in the way that we do. As an example, Sailor here, who is a dude, has no idea that his original name, Astrid, is a woman's name.
Oh my.
Though, to be fair, his full legal name, which cats really care about formality, is technically Astrid Sailor. There's nothing wrong with changing a cat's name if you found out their sex was misidentified. You can also just keep their name. It doesn't actually matter that much to your cat. That said, can your cat even understand their name at all? Yeah, they can, and not just their own name. There's been a lot of experiments that have been done on this with cats to test to see if they respond to a human calling their name. Across various studies, researchers have controlled for all sorts of variables and other explanations for cats understanding their own name, including familiarity with the humans that are calling their name, how their name is said, and even if they would respond to the name of a familiar cat. Cats appear to be able to understand their name based on the phonetic pieces of their actual name. In other words, they can tell the differences between a k sound and a p sound. It probably isn't the tone of your voice alone that causes your cat to respond, though their reaction could be influenced by the tone. For example, my buddy Graham here, if he's doing something silly but undesirable and his humans were to say, "Graham," he'd probably respond differently than if they gave him a sweet, "Oh, Graham, there are snacks for you." I also, for the record, would respond to the offer of snacks. Researchers have tested if cats respond to other names of cats in their own home, and their own names aren't the only names that cats understand. Sam and his buddy Motley here are two peas within a single pod. They likely understand each other's names just based on observing how we behave when we say the name of the other cat. The reaction is different than how cats would react to their own name, so this isn't just a simple case of thinking they have a second name. I've seen this in real life with clients whose cats aren't getting along, and they have a less than positive reaction to the name of the other cat that they don't get along with. So does that mean you should name your cats wildly different names from each other? I mean, I wouldn't name one cat Bob and one cat Bobby, for example. Names starting with the same letter, like the one and only Poutine and Prozac, are probably different enough that your cat can pick out if they're the one being talked to. If you're concerned that your cat doesn't understand their name, if the reason you think that they don't understand their name is that your cat is not immediately turning towards you when you call them, Poutine? Poutine? You may be misinterpreting their behavior. No, it's not because they're ignoring you. You may notice that your cat's ears move ever so slightly, even if they stay mostly still when you call your cat's name, or they react very subtly to their name being called. Your cat is trying to figure out what is the best possible response, and is there something threatening or concerning happening? It's also possible your cat just doesn't understand what you want from them. Remember earlier how we talked about cats not speaking ancient Sumerian? Obviously the language you're using to talk to your cat, I know what you're doing over there, or really any other human language, applies here too. To help better understand this, think about a time where your cat came and meowed at you. This happens a lot around here. Poutine. Maybe you tried a few things and none of them satisfied your cat. That's how your cat feels when they aren't sure why you're calling their name or what you want from them. Actually, some of the studies we've done suggest that cats don't really need any formal training to pick up on their name. You just repeat it enough and they make the association eventually. Or I guess that they could be deaf and they can't really perceive any sound whatsoever, so it just isn't ever gonna work. The key is consistency. By being consistent with their name, they'll understand what that weird noise that the human who feeds them is making means. Now, if you're a normal cat parent, you probably have at least 35,000 nicknames for your cats. A lot of people just refer to their cat by some totally unrelated nickname. In some cases, it may be a made-up word like sweeb, which is what I call poutine. For the record, that word came from both me randomly baby talking to him, because man, I am embarrassing, and a combination of the words sweet and boy. Rozak happens to be sweet boy, so I can't call them by the same thing. That would be weird. Do cats understand those nicknames? Honestly, they probably do. It's the same process as learning their actual name. Much like how you can pick up on being called different names, your cat can probably make the same distinction. That said, using a nickname too often while your cat is learning their real name may impact them actually knowing what their real name is. If you never call your cat by an actual name, they're not gonna understand it. So far, we've determined that cats can understand their names and the name of other cats, but that they don't understand the actual meaning behind their name. So you could name your cat after, I don't know, an antidepressant or a Canadian delicacy or something like that. Which, by the way, if you stick around a little bit longer, I'm going to share how I named my cats because I get asked about it a lot. Your cat won't care, especially if they have 314,622 nicknames. The reason what you name your cat matters is because of how it affects you and how you interact with your cat. There's a lot of misinformation out there about cats, including right here on this very platform. The myths themselves aren't the relevant part for this video, though. It's more that there are a lot of misconceptions that may lead us to think that cats are these terrible, awful creatures, when really they are just cute little snuggle bugs, and delightful, and they purr. Man, how can people not like cats? Some of those myths are things like cats being vengeful or that black cats are bad luck, so they paint cats in a rather bad light. Those negative myths about cats, combined with naming them something rude or disparaging, means you're gonna be more likely to see them as being evil or bad or somebody who wouldn't use their turn signal if they could operate motor vehicles, which I'm pretty sure is not a good idea to give a cat a driver's license. And no, this isn't just me being a cat weirdo, and it's professional cat weirdo to you, thanks. We're a science-based channel around here, and we don't just go with things because people have believed them for a long time, because there's a lot of stuff that we thought about cats that we know now are no longer true. This is based on studies in human psychology. Our language affects how we see the world. Literally, language can change how and what we can perceive. And I'm talking what you are actually even physically able to perceive. A 2020 review by Gary oh, I'm so sorry, Dr. L. I'm butchering your name. I am not good at this. By this esteemed researcher whose name I'm gonna just put it on the screen here. And colleagues found that visual perception, including both our interpretation of visual input from the world and even what we have the ability to take in, is influenced by our language. Some studies have suggested if you don't have a word for a color, you can't see it. Am I saying that if you name your cat Charlie, you're going to start seeing your cat as an Oompa Loompa or swear that they can run a chocolate factory out of your closet at night? Actually, sweet Mr. Charlie here is more likely to nap on a couch than be a sweet-based entrepreneur. That isn't the only way that your perception of him may be shaped by his name. Language can affect how we interpret visual input and memory. So you may be more likely to see Charlie doing something that you don't like very much if you have a Charlie from your past that is a real. Or you may be more likely to see him as sweet, precious angel baby if you have a Charlie from your past that brought you great joy. A very well-known psychology study by Elizabeth Loftus from 1974 had students look at a video of a car accident. The participants were asked questions about what they saw in the video. One of the questions about the speed of the cars had one word changed to see if word choice affected people's memory of the video. People who were asked about the speed of the cars when they smashed or collided estimated that the cars were going 8 or 9 miles per hour faster than those who were asked how fast the cars were going when they contacted. This was from the exact same video. This wasn't like they were shown different videos or that one was sped up. In other words, word choice affects how you think about the world, including your cat. If you name your cat Jackass, you might think that they're a jackass. If you, I don't know, give them a nickname like Sweet Boy, you might think that they are a very kind young male cat. Don't set yourself up to think your cat is trying to make your life harder with the sometimes mystifying and frustrating things that cats can do. You might interpret totally innocent behavior as being out of spite, or the cat trying to mess with you. Finally, before we get to the stories of my own cats' names, let's say that you named your cat Elsa and now you expect her to just let everything go, or that your cat Grace can gracefully catch a tinfoil ball out of the air. That's actually really impressive. Good job, Grace. Let's say you screwed up naming your cat and want to pick something a bit nicer. Or you just adopted them and you don't love their current name. Can you change the name of your cat? As we talked about with nicknames, yep, not a big deal. Your cat will adjust by you repeating the new name over and over again. No formal training is required. You could, for example, rename Poppy here to Petunia, and no, he won't care that he has a name typically given to women. Or you could change it to Pumpernickel or even something like Poutine. It doesn't need to be something similar to their previous name. I gave all but one of my cats a completely different name than what they came with when I adopted them, which, hey, let me share why I gave my cats their names, because I get asked about this a lot. And people also like to share their opinions on my cats' names. So in addition to being, a cat expert, I'm also a psychiatric physician assistant. So as part of my other role in the world, I prescribe psychiatric medications. That's where both Zoloft, my soul cat who unfortunately is no longer around, and Prozac's name came from. Zoloft's name was originally Kitty, and honestly, he was just too majestic to be named Kitty. I got Zoloft at a time in my life where I was going through some things. I was really burnt out at my job and I was kind of struggling. So I figured he'd be a bit of a living antidepressant. And honestly, he definitely was. After my time physically being with Zoloft came to an end and he passed, I saw a photo of this really sad, disheveled looking Siamese cat named Paul. I went to the shelter with the intention of just petting him and, long story short, Prozac. He came home with me. We both had a lot of healing to do because he was terrified of everything and so very thin. So we were gonna continue with the antidepressant theme. A few months later, I was at a local cat cafe and I met a scared Siamese dude that was hiding in an empty litter box enclosure who decided to come up and rub his cute little head against me. Needless to say, I was filling out the adoption application before I even left the cafe. None of the medications I could think of sounded cuddly enough, so I tried thinking of other things I liked, and then I remembered my favorite place in the entire world, Canada. Poutine, the extremely tasty food made from French fries, cheese curds, and gravy, originated in Canada, and I just really love Canada. It sounded snuggly too, so poutine fit. In other words, I named my cats for me. Their names are a reflection of my life and my quirks and my interests. I really don't care if people think it's weird that I named my cats after antidepressants or medications, and that I will probably do that again in the future. As long as you're not naming your cat Sack of Poop or Dum Dum, name them whatever you like. Naming them something rude may affect how you interact with them or interpret their behavior, so don't set yourself up to see your cat as being a nuisance. Whatever name you go with, your cat will probably be able to pick up on it as long as it's not super long and complicated. They won't care if they are named after a food, a character from your favorite book, or even a medication. Prozac doesn't know that his namesake is used to treat OCD, or honestly, he doesn't even know what OCD is. He is a cat. He just knows that he's very, very, very loved, and that when I say his name, good things are coming his way. Plus, let's be honest here, you're just going to call your cat Mr. Leggy. Goofus Maloofus, my little flabébés, said specifically in that voice, the dudes. Or some other nickname that isn't even remotely related to their real names most of the time anyway. So, what are your cats' names? Do they have a nickname? Feel free to tell me a little bit about them and how they got their names in the comments.